Thank you very much, Doctor. Good morning, everybody. I want to thank you all for joining us for today's bi-weekly press briefing. We do have what we think is a very important announcement today to announce the Metropolitan Police Department's new body-worn camera pilot program. I'm pleased to be joined by our Chief, Cathy Lanier, and also our Deputy Mayor for Public Safety and Justice, Paul Quander, who is here. Thank you, Paul, for being here as well. MPD and public safety partners have been planning this for this day for months. In fact, the better part of a year, around a year, and we're excited to be able to share the details of this pilot with you today. As the Chief will tell you in just a few minutes, testing body cameras on officers is a way to foster transparency, even more transparency in law enforcement, and improve police services and community relations, as well as enhance public safety. Through funding that I was actually pleased to be able to include in our fiscal year 14 supplemental budget that we got through this past May, we were able to move forward with this pilot that we hope will be very successful and then can be expanded upon. Let me put this into some context at this stage. Even though we've been working on the pilot for months, and there are people who've already asked me if the police shooting of Michael Brown in Ferguson, Missouri was the motivation, the impetus for this, and to what extent community response to that around the country elevated our efforts. Let me make it clear that, one, we believe the cameras have a role in helping to prevent and solve crimes, and that we have been working on this situation long before the situation occurred, before this occurred in Ferguson, Missouri, the shooting that took place there. The Metropolitan Police Department and the district have understood the importance of implementing cutting-edge tools that enhance the crime-fighting capabilities of our police force here in the city. And the body camera is yet another technique, another approach in being able to do that. When I look at what is occurring throughout the country, and I do pay a lot of attention to this, many of you know that I go regularly to the mayor's meetings that are held, and there are anywhere from 200 to 300 mayors, sometimes more, who attend those meetings. It gives me an opportunity to pay close attention to what's happening in urban centers around the nation. And frankly, I'm very favorably impressed with our Metropolitan Police Department when I look at what we're doing with our MPD and what's happening in other policing around the nation. We are a leader in technology, and we think in policing efforts as well. I want to commend the Chief for her leadership and her foresight in helping us to continue to be at the cutting edge of policing and law enforcement in the nation. I also want to thank the men and women who work on MPD for the work that they do each day to keep our city safe. There isn't a day that goes by that I don't look at the crime statistic, and that's just statistics, and that is absolutely the truth. Every morning I get up, I look at the crime data and have had discussions with people being able to use that data as a focal point for the discussion. I've had people come to me and say, we ought to be doing this, and we ought to be doing that, we need a special initiative on this. And I've said, why don't you look at the data? The data will take you in the direction that we need to go. I've had that discussion around homicides. Our robberies are down by more than 20% in the District of Columbia, and other important foci, measures, if you will, of crime are down as well. So in addition to commending the Chief, I want to commend the other 4,000 of our officers who work hard every day to keep our city safe. I guess the bottom line is that we believe that the body-worn cameras will enhance police work in our city, especially at a time when our population is steadily growing, that we're adding 1,000 to 1,200 people each month. We now have 660,000 people who live in the District of Columbia. It is the largest population that we've had since the 1970s, and there is every indication that our population will continue to grow. And we want to make sure that we have a crime-fighting, a law enforcement apparatus that continues to be contemporary as well. And the body-worn cameras will help us continue to be able to do that. So with that said, I want to ask Chief Lanier if she will come up and talk about how the cameras will be used and the potential benefits of the body-worn cameras to fighting crime here in the District of Columbia. Chief?
Thanks. So I see our models are coming up. So we have a couple of different models here. This rollout, the pilot project that we're rolling out, and you can see they're wearing different models, different styles of cameras. We're going to be testing 5 different camera styles. So we're going to involve about 160 officers. They're each going to try each of the cameras. So all the officers that are involved in the pilot will try each of the cameras so they can get a sense of, the decision we have to make now is which camera is the most comfortable for the officers in terms of ease of, positioning and use. So you can see there's some head mounted, there's some collar mounted, there's some that are mounted on the shirt. Which captures the video that is most advantageous for us. And then the storage solutions are also part of this decision. Every make of camera has different solutions for storage. And then, the ability to charge the equipment, make sure it's ready for long tours of duty, and it makes it through a kind of rugged shift. So we're being very cautious about this because it's a big investment for us. But we spent almost 18 months now researching this to narrow it down to the 5 models that we have. So this is the last part of the evaluation for us. We have a pretty solid final policy. We have collaborated with major city chiefs around the country, Police Executive Research Forum, ACLU, and many other groups to make sure we have a solid policy. There's a lot of details that go into a rollout of something of this nature. We also collaborated with the FOP. I want to acknowledge Chairman of the FOP, Delroy Burton, is here. The FOP has been instrumental in helping us work through a lot of the policy issues. And right now, I think for the officers who volunteered for the pilot, we all realize that we've implemented a lot of technology here in Washington, D.C. A lot of the technology we roll out is to make officers safer, to make them more efficient, make them more effective. And this is just another way for us to do all of that and to, kind of reduce some of the workload. Frontline supervisors spend an awful lot of time going back and doing investigations based on, 4 or 5 different people's opinion on what happened on a scene. Well, now we'll have a video. People's opinions often vary on a scene, on interactions between a police officer and a citizen, interactions with an officer in the process of making an arrest. So this gives us that independent, unbiased witness that will, help us kind of sort through what is normal in a police investigation of a variety of opinions from a variety of different people. So this will make our officers safer. It will make our department more transparent. It will, reduce the amount of time that supervisors have to spend investigating allegations, and the more time the supervisors can spend on the street supporting police officers, then the better off we all are. So this is the first group we're going to roll out October 1st. The officers so far have been cautiously optimistic about how easy it's going to be to use these things when they go out. So the way the program will work is as soon as they are dispatched or a call is initiated and given to the officer, either initiated by the officer or given to the officer, they will activate the camera. The camera will remain on throughout the entire incident until they have cleared and left the scene. So as they're clearing whatever the scene is, if it's processing arrest or whatever, once they finish that call, then they will turn the camera off. The policy is extensive, so I could sit here and go through all 10, 12 pages of what requirements are, but it's basically for the officer, any interaction they have, they are going to initiate recording. Those recordings, if they're not part of a criminal investigation or administrative investigation of some sort, those recordings will be destroyed after 90 days. So there is a process for FOIA requests. That is one of the probably more complicated issues for us in terms of the volume of requests that we get. And then, redaction of video is going to be a big challenge for us because it is a lot of process. You can figure as we roll this out, we're going to have officers 24 hours a day, 7 days a week out on the street wearing these cameras. That's an awful lot of video, a lot of review, and a lot of management of those video once we go out. So we're kind of working through some of those things right now, but we're excited to have the officers go out. And I'm going to give you a short video so you can see exactly what this is going to look like for us as it rolls out. So why don't we roll the video, and then we'll take questions.
I'm going to let Burton say a word or two. So, yeah.
Our little actress is sitting in the back of the room back there.
Can I see your license registration, please?
Oh, I'm sorry. I was just late for work.
I understand. I also want to advise you that me and my partner, Officer Coakley, are both wearing cameras today. Ma'am, I need to see your driver's license, not your library card. Do you have
We
proof of
actually
insurance?
think that she didn't do that by accident. That was.
Please remain seated in your vehicle. I'll be with you in a few minutes.
$3049.
3049.
Yes, ma'am, dispatcher. Be advised we're at the 4600 block of Blue Plains Avenue Southeast with a traffic stop.
Okay, 4600 block of Blue Plains Drive Southwest. How many times the vehicle occupied?
The vehicle was occupied one time. I have one to run when you're ready. DC tag.
I'm ready.
DC tag of Adam Henry George 349.
Copy DC, Adam Henry George 349. And I'm 41.
Okay, license valid. Everything checks out. Let's give a written warning. Okay, ma'am, it's just a written warning today. Please slow down and have a good day.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So one of the things we try to demonstrate in this video is the entire interaction between the officer and the officers and the person on the stop is recorded. A lot of times we'll get complaints on officers that require an investigation that is something that is as simple as, hey, when the officer made the traffic stop, he made me sit in the car for an unusually long period of time, and I think he did that just to be kind of, punitive. Why did he make me sit there so long? And so if somebody comes and makes that complaint at the station, right now we have to, get complaint numbers and do an investigation where we have to interview people, do a written report, and as you see from this interaction, if the officer did everything they were supposed to do and the only delay was running the information through the computer and we see that it wasn't, and believe me, when you're sitting there on the other side of a traffic stop, it might seem like a really long time. This way we have all the facts, and we can sometimes, clear that up right then and there, go back to the station, be able to download video, look at that video, and then, avoid having a lengthy investigation and explain to the person, that, you know, hey, this is just part of what the officer's job is. The entire interaction took 2.5 minutes. And, you know, we realize that sometimes that feels a little different when you're the one inside of the car that's been stopped. But so this will help us tremendously in terms of, you know, avoiding a lot of those lengthy investigations and being able to explain things clearly to a member of the community who doesn't understand why during the course of a traffic stop they had to sit in the car and wait. So I'd like to give the chairman of the union an opportunity to make a few comments if you want, Delroy.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. My name is Delroy Burton. I'm the chairman of the D.C. Police Union, and I would just like to echo some of the chief's comments. One of the big reasons we are in full support of this program is because in all jurisdictions where this has been implemented, complaints against police officers have been reduced. What that will do for us as a union and as an agency is it will significantly reduce our administrative load. Frivolous complaints, false complaints will no longer be made alleging that an officer said something that there's no way possible that we could verify. With the body-worn camera, all the interaction will be recorded. It's no longer a he said, she said. We can go back and we can review that document, we can review that film, review the audio, and quickly clear the matter up. It also enhances officer safety as well as the public safety because people behave differently when they know they're being recorded. The citizens behave differently, officers will behave differently, and we believe the outcome will be better interaction between the members that I represent, the public at large, citizens, employees that work here, and visitors to the District of Columbia. And I want to commend the chief and everyone that's worked on this program. We have been working on this for quite some time, and we are pleased to lend our support to the body-worn camera program. Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
All right, we'll open it up for any questions that you all may have about this this effort. Martin.
So who activates the cameras? The officer themselves, or is it someone downtown?
The officer activates the camera. So
There we go.
as soon as they're dispatched to a call, as soon as they turn on their lights, as soon as to make a traffic stop, as soon as a call is initiated to the officer, they will start the recording. Once they are clear and departing from that call, then they'll deactivate.
What if they don't, Chief?
So the policy makes it clear. There's some exceptions to recording, but very few. So, you know, we'll be able to go back and review if an officer turns that camera off. Certainly, if there's an allegation, we're going to go back and look for that video.
So it should be instinctive almost.
Yes.
Chief, what are the exceptions? When can civilians expect the camera not to be on?
And the second part of the question is, could you give us an update? I mean, what's the status of complaints against officers and by officers? What's the situation?
So any place where there's a reasonable expectation of privacy, obviously the officer is not going to use the camera. So locker rooms, restrooms, things of that nature. But if they're on an official call for service and are lawfully at a premises, they're going to be recording. I mean, that's all the whole point of the video. In terms of citizen complaints, and a lot of times the complaints we get are very similar to what I described. A misunderstanding of what the actions of the officer are, and sometimes it is a he said, she said, and people get frustrated on both sides, both police officers and community members, when it's an officer and an individual, and one says one thing, one says something else. We can't really substantiate that. We have two people telling us two different stories, and unless we have something to support one side over the other, that investigation, which takes weeks, to complete written investigation to kind of exhaust all, means, will come back as unfounded. I mean, or unsubstantiated, because we can't, prove or disprove the allegation, and that's frustrating for everybody because the officer feels like, well, wait a minute, I said I didn't do it and you didn't vindicate me. You just said it's unsubstantiated, and the citizen says, I said that the officer said this and you didn't support my position either. So this helps that tremendously.
Well, my question is more specific. I mean, given that civilian box, it's a pretty big program you've got here. What's behind that? What's the need here? How many complaints are you getting? Say, a year, 5 years.
Well, here's the driver for me. As the chief, with supervisors on the street, the first line supervisors are the most important people in the Metropolitan Police Department. Their job is to be out there in the street supporting those officers to make sure that they have what they need, they're doing what they're supposed to, and they're getting all the support from the supervisor that are supposed to manage, the police deployments and conduct. If those supervisors are spending one complaint, the traffic stop complaint I gave you, that they, that scenario, the sergeant has up to 90 days to fully investigate that. So they got to go and take statements from multiple people. They've got to look for video in the area. That will take that supervisor off the street for several days conducting that investigation and writing up a final report. If we can clear that up with the video and avoid that, we get about, I want to say, I can't give you exact numbers off the top of my head, but let's say I get 300 complaints a year. Take that 300 complaints and multiply it times even 10 days of supervisors' time off the street. That's a tremendous impact on us. So efficiency-wise, what we've seen from other police departments, complaints go down 80% on average. So 80% reduction in complaints and administrative investigation time. And what we've seen from police departments around the country is they've been able to decrease the size of their internal affairs bureaus by up to half because the complaints have dropped so dramatically.
Can we get some kind of number, though, in terms of how many?
I can get it to you. I just don't walk around with that in my head. Yes.
Robert Ferguson from AFP, French News Agency. I was going to ask a number of complaints questions as well, the number of man hours, so, Gwendolyn, we're going to hear that later, that would be great. But also, in the case of a major incident, and you have 10 and 20 officers going to the scene of a homicide, for instance, are like all 10 or 20 cameras going on at the same time?
Every officer that's on assignment, responding to assignment, we're required to turn their cameras on, so they will all be on. And you make allude to another point. We also could use these on very active scenes for training purposes as well. Obviously, we always review any incidents where officers are are injured, or any instances where officers are using force. We can use those to help identify better tactics and better training for our police officers to reduce the number of officer injuries and uses of force. So there's a lot of value to the cameras.
Will you be spot checking the video to maybe check for performance of your officers to see how they're doing as they carry out their day-to-day work? Will this be used just as common review to make sure they're doing things properly?
No. I mean, that's not the point of the camera. The point of the camera is to have a record if there is an inquiry, or if there's an allegation, or if there's a crime that's got to be investigated. It is not a tool to, use as a gotcha, or to check in on officers. I mean, we believe the officers, that for the most part, are going to follow policy and do what they're supposed to do. And if they don't, we get a complaint, we go back and pull the video. But it's not going to be used to, kind of do random checks on police officers.
Chief, I'm a reporter. I want to put in an FOI request for every piece of video you get. Am I going to get it?
I know you will, Tom.
And also, on the pilot program, how long do you expect it to last? And will that video be subject to an FOI request so we can see what you're seeing?
So right now, there's a little bit of a learning curve for us. We know that one of the biggest challenges for departments around the country that have implemented the use of the body cameras, and they're all much, much smaller deployments than ours, is compliance with FOIA. There's a short turnaround time for FOIA. And if we're going to have to pull video, review it, and redact it, that's a human being that's doing it. We're trying to find some analytical software that'll assist us with, redacting faces and identifying information in those cases. So we're really kind of testing to see how long it's going to take us to be able to do that, and if we need to make some modifications to the FOIA process to be able to comply. I mean, right now, our turnaround time is very, very short given the number of complaints or requests that we get. So it's going to be tough, I think. We're going to have to probably add some staffing to deal with that.
I'm sorry. How long is the pilot program expected to last?
6 months? 6 months total, but I think maybe a little bit shorter than that, but we're giving it 6 months.
Chief, I noticed in the video that the officer said to the lady, I'm wearing a body camera. Is that required as well?
Yes, when practical. There are some circumstances where an officer may get out in an extremely hostile or active environment. If it is practicable, they are required to give the notice, but there is some exceptions again.
You said there was an 80% drop.
80%.
I mean, is there any research saying why? I mean, the officers behave better, the citizens behave better, or what? Both?
Both, yes.
Yes. Matt Cohen, DCist. What if in the interaction somebody gets the victim doesn't want to be videotaped, like it's a sexual assault case, and they don't feel comfortable having cameras on them? Is that, I mean, are their officers required to always have it, even if a victim doesn't want it?
So even in interview processes of victims, it is common for us, even when we do interviews of victims now at stations, we sometimes, video those interviews. Yes, they can make a request and there'll be a decision process, but most often if we're there investigating a crime, that camera's going to remain on. Now, we certainly wouldn't release that video. But, victim statements are a critical part of any criminal prosecution going forward. And so having that video or not maintaining that video could be problematic for us if we don't. Yes.
Chief, at the end of this pilot program, is the goal to choose one particular model of camera, or are you going to have anticipating having different models of cameras in the field?
I mean, ideally, it would be one, but I don't want to say conclusively that's going to be the decision. We have some equipment that we deploy two different kinds, just because it's preference for different officers and different assignments. So we may end up selecting more than one kind. I mean, ideally, it would be one particular camera because the storage and charging and all that stuff will be the same. But we may find that for plainclothes operations or specialized mission units, there's a different type of camera we want to use. So we just don't know yet.
And on the money side, obviously you have the funding for this pilot program. Did you identify the funding that rolled this out to the entire course? Is there a timeline on that?
Yeah, so once we have to select a camera first of all and estimate the data storage size. Those are all going to play into the cost, and then we will try and factor it into the budget. We have set aside in the budget cycle that has, been completed already, we have set aside some money for our technology enhancements to keep going forward. But I would imagine this is probably going to be a 2 to 3 year rollout for the entire agency. Just, guessing on the cost. This is costing us about $1 million, but that's not just for the cameras. I think we have a total of how many cameras did we get? 250 cameras, but it's all the infrastructure that goes along with it as well. So that's servers for data storage, chargers, and some other stuff. So we'll probably phase this in over 2 or 3 years to roll it out. But the ideal is to have it on patrol officers first, and some of the officers that are out there on the front line having the most contact.
Anybody who's not asked a question like these after we're getting questions?
We have
my editors are asking me to ask you and the chief, are you're both there and we're rolling on our cameras. Can you tell us about the terror alert, the concerns? Have you gotten any special instructions about the current terror alert given the activities in the Middle East?
Yes.
On camera or not?
Yes. We're very fortunate here in Washington. We have a, great relationship with the intelligence community, the FBI. We have been continually briefed and are very aware of, what the situations that we're watching are. The mayor included.
That's right. Do you expect these cameras to actually save lives?
Well, it's kind of hard to put into saving lives quantity, but I think what it can do for us is support evidence, support witness statements, and help with criminal prosecution and violent offenses and other offenses. And also, it saves us an awful lot of time for officers out on the street. And certainly assaults on police officers, we're hoping that it will reduce that.
And perhaps change the conduct of some police officers?
Sure. I mean, like we say, it's very rare that we're not being videotaped somewhere by somebody anyway. I mean, we're the last people to get cameras, right? I mean, we're being videotaped every day, so we're like the last one in the bunch to get cameras. So now we'll have ours as well.
All right, thank you all very much. You have one, Andrew?
Yeah, Chief, just very quickly on the different variety of cameras, could you speak a little bit more? I believe you said there were 5, but are there just 2 different places where the cameras might exist, one on the glasses, one on the front of the body?
So one vendor has 2 or two different mounts, I believe. One that kind of wraps around behind your head and has the camera that right above the ear, so almost is just exactly what you would see from the eye level, and has other options for glass mounts. So the options are collar mount, the one that goes around your head, a pair with glasses with a camera on the side, one that goes, attaches to your shirt. That's the ones that we're testing, right? Yes. All of those? Yes. So that's the different models that we're looking at. And really we're trying to evaluate not just the durability and the quality of the video, the cameras, but the ease of use for officers. If the one that mounts on the shirt becomes cumbersome getting in and out of the car with a seatbelt, that may not be the best option. So we want them to actually use it in the environment they work in every day and then tell us which one is the best.
You're testing 3 models or 5?
We're testing 5. One vendor has 2 different styles. We're testing both. All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. All right, those who were here just for this, you're welcome to depart if you like. We'll now open it up for other questions that folks may have. Martin?
Well, actually, you keep Chief Lanier here for just a second.
Come back, Chief.
As you guys know, the council yesterday voted on the concealed carry bill, but there was a couple of questions that they raised. One of them was about when a resident who has a concealed carry permit can brandish a gun, if they can even brandish it, let's say they're threatened. Like, what's a resident's rights when it comes to using a concealed weapon when they're threatened?
So I think I'm going to defer that to either the legal counsel or to the council staff, because I've not been involved in some of those discussions, and since it's on the legislative side, I'd rather let them answer that question.
Yeah, we'll get the OAG.
Yeah.
We'll get the Attorney General to get an answer for you, Martin. And Doxy, where'd Doxy go? Oh, can you get back to him with an answer on that? The question was whether somebody can brandish a gun, or I guess if they feel under duress and they pull a gun, what legal authority do they have to be able to demonstrate that they have a weapon, right? And I agree with the Chief. Let's let the Attorney General's office answer that.
Well, then, on a less legal question, Chief Lanier, you're going to be given a lot of flexibility in who gets these licenses based on this kind of vague definition of being under personal threat. Do you have a sense of whether the rules are going to spell out the situations that would qualify someone? I mean, I know it's been mentioned, yes, if you have a stalker, then you could probably get one. If you live in a dangerous neighborhood, that's not enough.
So I think following the introduction of the legislation, there'll be rulemaking, and the rulemaking will kind of narrow things down a little bit more and give us a little bit more clarity. I don't see it as being extremely vague. If we, look at what has been done in other jurisdictions, you can narrow it down pretty significantly, so that you have a process by which everybody's request can be evaluated fairly without that broad disparity.
Chief, yesterday I asked Chairman Mendelson how a year from now, assuming this stays in place, how many people do you think will have concealed carry permits? He said, I don't see there being more than a couple hundred. Do you think that sounds right to you? Do you think there will be more? Do you think there will be less?
Well, I mean, none of us have a crystal ball. Since Heller allowed registration of handguns in 2008, I believe there's about 6,000, and previously registered firearms, about 6,000 registered firearm owners. And that's since 2008. So in a couple years, how many people that are legally registered handguns are going to request carry permits and get them approved through the legislation? It's kind of hard to say. I'd rather not guess a number, because it's just kind of hard to say. We tried to guess how many people were going to register after Heller, and we were all kind of like really off.
Do you see this as something? Do you see only a few dozen people qualifying under what's been set out in the law?
Yeah, I mean, we don't know. I don't see. I certainly don't see. Extremely large numbers of people coming in and requesting. I mean, this is kind of the lessons learned from Heller. I think everybody anticipated we'd be flooded with people trying to register the handguns in their home, and we just didn't see that. That never happened. So I don't see a flood of requests coming in.
Look at Maryland, New York, New Jersey, Mike. I don't know what their numbers are.
Mr. Mayor, the microphone, please, sir. Can we catch every word?
I know you want to hear every word too, don't you, Tom?
in the mayor's race?
What's that got to do with licensing of guns?
Well, this is the general part.
No, he has a specific question. I was saying that you might want to check in with New York, New Jersey, and Maryland, which obviously have gone in this direction already. I don't know the numbers of licenses that they've issued, but the percentages there might be instructive for what could happen here, because otherwise we're just poking in the dark and guessing, and we'd rather not do that.
Mr. Mayor, the other thing that came up yesterday is a question of whether the city should publish a list of the people who have these permits. Do you believe that that's a good idea or a bad idea?
I don't know. I heard last night that question came up. I think that's something we're going to have to evaluate, Mike. I don't know that it's on its face it is a bad idea, but let us talk to the Attorney General's office to see whether there are any untoward implications associated with publishing such a list. On its face, I don't have a problem with it, but let us again look at the legal implications associated with that.
Do you have a problem with it?
I let the attorneys make that decision. Right now we don't make registration information public, so I don't know, what the change is going to be in terms of carry. There's different considerations, so I'll let the attorneys make that decision.
Okay. I don't know, Tom. I haven't made that decision yet.
Tell me what your thought process is about how or whether you will or make it, or you just haven't decided yet that you're going to.
You're going to keep coming at this until you squeeze an answer out of me, aren't you? I don't have an answer today.
We have less than a month before there's early voting.
Yeah.
There's some people who, you did get a few votes in April.
I got a few votes, huh?
Quite a few. They're wondering what you want to do.
I've answered that, Tom. I don't have an answer for you today.
You'll have a different answer by early voting?
I don't know. You'll find out. No, your cameras work far better than hers do. Yeah, that's the danger of it all, isn't it? We're not editing anything that our police officers are wearing. Yes. Tell us who you are.
I'm Bridget Bowman with Roll Call. I have a question about the sales tax that's going to take effect.
About the what?
The sales tax that's going to take effect next week.
The sales tax?
Yes.
Uh-huh.
Do you think it will apply specifically to yoga studios?
What sales tax are you talking about?
Health club, fitness.
Oh, will it apply to what now?
Yoga studios? Yoga studios?
I think it does, doesn't it? It's whatever's in the legislation. As you know, I oppose it. I think it's a bad idea to tax people for trying to stay fit, because it will, over the long haul, it will reduce our health care costs. But I think it does apply to yoga studios.
I'm asking because some in the yoga community are arguing that it actually doesn't, because the law says that it's for fitness centers that the primary purpose is physical exercise, and they argue that that's not the purpose of yoga. So I'm wondering, do you know if there will be any consideration on that?
We will follow whatever the law says. It wasn't an initiative of ours in the first place, but now that it's been adopted by the council, and as you know, I actually vetoed the Budget Support Act that included that provision, and one of the reasons was because of that provision. But the veto was overridden. It is now the law, and we will follow the law. If there's some ambiguity in there about to whom it applies, we will seek a legal opinion from the Office of the Attorney General and move forward on that basis. Yes, sir.
Yeah, Ian Simpson with Reuters. I was wondering, the Secret Service is talking about expanding the security area around the White House, including potentially screening pedestrians around the White House farther away than it is now. I was wondering if you had any thoughts on that and the expansion of security for areas around the Washington.
Well, probably a couple thoughts. First and foremost, we want to make sure that the President and the White House, that they are safe. That is of paramount importance. At the same time, we obviously don't want any more, incursions, if you will, into the space in the District of Columbia than absolutely necessary in order to preserve safety, because we want people to feel comfortable moving around the city. We get, hundreds, thousands of tourists who come to the city every day, And we want people to feel comfortable moving around this city, and not to be mercenary or crass, but we want them to feel comfortable spending their money, because that's an important part of our economy as well. But we recognize the paramount importance of safety, safety of the President and the White House, and obviously we intend to be as cooperative as we possibly can to help ensure that.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Mayor, order, very shortly the council is going to kick off a hearing on the Inspector General's report on parking and traffic enforcement. You read that report. Have you made any recommendations to your agency directors on how to respond to it?
Not yet, Mike. There's been some, without going into details, because I don't have the details today, but there's been some skepticism that's been expressed by some of our leaders on this report. But not having fully read it myself, I'm not going to speculate on, you know, what the details may.
You see skepticism. What sort of skepticism about the findings of the report? The motivations behind it?
And I won't go into the details because I don't have the details to be able to provide. We had a very brief discussion about it yesterday in our senior staff meeting. But you know, when the hearing is conducted, we'll obviously participate, and we will, you know, we will express what our views are at that point. So stay tuned. Matt?
Mr. Mayor, I'm just wondering when you think you're going to sign this emergency legislation as soon as it gets to your...
I'm having a little trouble hearing you, Matt.
I'm wondering when you might sign the emergency legislation that was passed by the council on the gun restrictions.
On guns?
Yeah.
Probably as soon as I get it. We want to make it clear that we are moving expeditiously on this. You know, let me make it clear, too, that people have asked me whether we have decided or not decided to file an appeal. We are still considering that. I think you know, too, that we had asked for a stay of 180 days. What was granted was 90 days, and there will be arguments on that, I think, on October 17th. So we're continuing, to pursue all options, but I don't have any reason not to sign the legislation as soon as it gets to me.
Mr. Mayor, I'm going to end on a fun note. A lot of people are growing beards to support the Nats in the rush to the playoffs. Some of us can't grow a beard, but would you be interested in growing a beard to support the team?
That's a hairy issue, Tom. No, I'm not endorsing beards today.
Pretty good, though, about the economic benefits of what's happening with the Nats.
I feel absolutely thrilled about the Nationals, first of all. You know, you go back to 2 years ago, we had a great team, we made the playoffs, and then everybody had these great expectations for last season. They didn't materialize, even though I think most of us knew we had the talent. We had people who got hurt. For whatever reason, we couldn't beat Atlanta, we couldn't beat St. Louis. But look at this year. I think we're up by, I don't know, maybe 16 games at this stage in the East Division. So I feel wonderful about the performance of the Nationals. I feel wonderful about our team. I actually think we're going to be good for a very long time, because you look at the infrastructure, if you will, of the organization. If you look at the quality of the players, the youthfulness of our players, they will be good for a very long time. You know, I thought you were going to ask me the other question. What about a series, Parkway series, between Baltimore and Washington? Of course, we have to get there first, but I think you know who I will be working hard to make sure it prevails in such a matchup.
So to be clear, you endorsed the Nats, but you have not yet endorsed the mayor.
If you were running, Tom, I would seriously consider endorsing you.
Write-ins don't work too well.
Well,
infrastructure.
Yeah.
You know, last time the Nats were in the playoffs, there was this big conflict over whether the Metro and whether they were going to pay for the Metro. Does that cross your desk at all? Is that going to be
No, and I don't know any reason why we would have changed our position from the last time. You know, with the payment of it also is affected, in some ways is affected obviously by the ridership. That the ridership would be the first ways in which we would have to pay for it. But our team is doing very well. You look at the attendance out there; it is extraordinary. And really, I think this is an answer that should emanate from the business success of the team. So what I said the last time hasn't changed in a couple years since. Okay, thank you all very much.